Welcome to Weekly News Highlights, where we bring you some of the biggest stories that made the headlines this week. I'm Song Yoo-jin, coming to you from Arirang's virtual studio. Their beginning seemed humble, but their ending was prosperous. This may best summarize South Korea's performance at the Paris 2024 Summer Olympic Games. With the 33rd Summer Olympics closing on Sunday night, we highlight some of the most unforgettable moments of Team Korea at the Games. Over in the Middle East, a week after the assassination of its political chief, Hamas has appointed a new figure to the position. We take a closer look at who this new leader is, the international community's response, and how tensions are heightening in the Middle East, with Iran vowing to retaliate against Israel, widely believed to be responsible for the assassination. It was no doubt a shaky week for stock buyers and sellers. It was a Black Monday for the South Korean stock market, marking its worst session since the 2008 financial crisis, followed by a partial recovery the next day. What's behind this volatility? After 2 weeks of glory, joy, perseverance, and tears, the Paris 2024 Summer Olympic Games come to a close on Sunday night local time. Now, despite sending the smallest number of athletes since the 1976 Montreal Olympics, Team Korea managed to far surpass its initial goal of 5 gold medals. Picking up from where we left off last week, South Korean archers wrapped up their Olympic journey by securing 3 more gold medals in the women's individual, men's individual, and mixed team events for an archery clean sweep. In badminton, Kim Won-ho and Chung Na-eun took home silver in the mixed doubles, while Hangzhou Asian Games gold medalist An Se-young won gold in the women's singles, bringing that Olympic title back to Korea for the first time in 28 years. The Korean national team also earned a silver in women's saber fencing, rounding off their fencing success with 2 golds and 1 silver. And the Korean shooting team delivered their best Olympic performance yet in Paris, clinching 3 gold and 3 silver medals. Over in Taekwondo, Park Tae-jun clinched Korea's first Olympic gold in the sport since the 2016 Rio de Janeiro Olympics on Wednesday, followed by another gold from Kim Yoo-jin the next day. And as we mentioned, South Korea swept all 5 golds in archery, once again winning all available archery events in a single Olympic Games after Rio 2016. Now, what's the secret of Korea becoming a stronghold in this sport? Our Choi Soo-hyung explains.
In this Summer Olympics, Korean archery won gold medals in all 5 events, coming first in the men's and women's team events, individual events, and the mixed team event. Those results mean Team Korea has maintained its dominance in the Olympic women's team event, where it has won gold at every Olympics since Seoul 1988, when the event was first introduced. The men's team also secured a 3rd consecutive team victory following wins in Rio de Janeiro and Tokyo. Why is Korean archery the best in the world? First, the Korea Archery Association has supported the athletes with a meticulous management system. It's often said that becoming a national team member is harder than winning an Olympic gold medal because the national team selection is based purely on objective scores. As a result, top athletes with remarkable abilities continue to be nurtured across generations. In addition, Hyundai Motor Group, which has been supporting archers with innovative technology for 40 years, played a significant role. For this Summer Olympics, they created self-adjusting shooting robots, serving as a practice partner for Korea's world-class archers and helped them maximize their abilities. The robots automatically calculate wind, temperature, and humidity and demonstrate a high accuracy rate with an average score of 9.65 points, allowing athletes to train as if in real competition. Customized 3D printed bow hand grips were provided to each athlete to ensure the most comfortable draw, and a camera-based heart rate sensor monitors the athlete's conditions. To ensure perfect preparation, the Korea Archery Association created a replica of the Esplanade des Invalides Stadium in Paris, where the archery events took place. As Les Invalides is located right next to the Seine River, they also conducted wind speed training near the Namhangang River, which has similar wind conditions. The Archery Association is now preparing for the next chapter of Korean archery at the 2028 Los Angeles Olympics in the U.S. with the best systems and support in place. Choi Soo-hyung, Arirang News.
And wrapping up the Olympics, here are some of the most attention-grabbing and iconic moments from Team Korea athletes. Our An Sung-jin has the highlights.
The 2024 Paris Olympics has been eye-grabbing, not only for its fierce competition and performances, but also for its behind-the-scenes moments that show another side to the athletes. South Korean table tennis player Shin Yoo-bin is one of them. The 20-year-old won fans at home and abroad when the scene of her eating bananas, rice balls, and peaches went viral. She also had pictures of her with an ice pouch on her head, bringing even more attention. Her cute image gave her the nickname 삐약이, which mimics the sound of a chick chirping in Korean. As Olympic stars grab attention, related products have also gained popularity. Peaches similar to the one eaten by Shin saw sales surge within days, and the number of searches for them also went up. Similarly, a pop-up store in Seoul saw strong sales of photo cards with various national team players on them, which had a 1-gram gold medal added. Most of the photo cards were already sold out early on. Commemorative coins for the Paris Olympics sold in convenience stores in South Korea were all sold out as well, reaching sales of up to 50 million won, or $36,000. As viewers found interest in Olympic stars, some enjoyed a bump in their popularity. National fencer Oh Sang-uk has been gaining fame for his charms. The 27-year-old was the first Korean fencer to win 2 gold medals in a single Olympics game. Since his appearance at the Olympics, his social media followers nearly doubled. South Korean silver-winning pistol shooter Kim Ye-ji also became a notable star as one of the coolest athletes. She went viral on social media with her style, futuristic eyeglasses, and cold chic look. Even Elon Musk, the head of Tesla Motors and social media platform X, commented on the platform that Kim should be cast in an action movie. The Olympic Games is about more than just the matches. It becomes an opportunity to get closer to the athletes that shine for the country. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
In the Middle East, the man who planned the October 7th assault against Israel has been named as the new leader of Hamas, raising tensions in the region further. For more on this, we have our foreign affairs correspondent Bae Eun-ji in the studio. Welcome back, Eun-ji.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us once more. So our first question for you this week is, Hamas has chosen one of its most powerful figures to be its political leader. So please tell us what we know more about him.
Right, so this week Hamas chose Yahya Sinwar as the head of its new political bureau to replace Ismail Haniyeh, who was assassinated in a presumed Israeli strike in Iran. The 61-year-old leader was born in a refugee camp in Gaza and spent at least 22 years of his adult life in Israeli prisons. And as you mentioned, he is believed to be the mastermind behind the planning and execution of the October 7th attack, when Hamas killed more than 1,000 people and took over 200 others as hostages. Sinwar has not been seen in public since the devastating attacks, defying Israel's attempts to kill him since the start of the war.
Right, so then what does this appointment mean to the ceasefire talks?
Well, this is not a good news regarding ceasefire efforts because Sinwar is seen as a hardliner, which further raises uncertainty over truce talks that are already rattled by the assassination of his predecessor. So it appears that Haniyeh's killing has actually resulted in a much more extreme leader for Hamas, which shows that the group is reinforcing a radical path as it's less likely to compromise.
Right, so how are other countries responding to this appointment of the new Hamas leader?
Well, the Israeli military has vowed to target Sinwar, calling him a murderer. Israel's military chief of staff said Wednesday that the decision to name Sinwar as its new leader is responsible for the planning and execution of what happened on October 7th.
We will make an effort to find him and attack him, and they can replace once again the head of the political bureau.
The U.S. also showed discontent, calling Sinwar a terrorist, while saying Washington is making efforts to de-escalate the situation in the region.
Man's a terrorist. He has an awful lot of blood on his hands. This guy was the architect of the 7th of October attacks in Israel. We don't want to see this conflict escalate. We certainly don't want to see any sort of all-out regional war. And there's not a whole lot of indications that other parties here want to see the same thing, which is why we're working really, really hard with intense diplomacy to try to avoid an escalation.
Last Friday, the U.S. announced that it'll deploy additional military resources to the Middle East, including an aircraft carrier, an additional fighter jet squadron, Navy cruisers, and destroyer ships. This comes as Israel braces for a likely attack from Iran and Iranian-backed Lebanese group Hezbollah. Iran has reportedly vowed to carry out a revenge attack against Israel over Haniyeh's killing in Tehran, and Hezbollah also threatened to retaliate in response to the killing of its military commander by Israel last week, without specifying the form or the timing of the attack.
Right, so the situation in the Middle East seems to be getting more serious. So I want to ask you, how is the South Korean government working to protect Korean nationals in the region?
While Israel remains on alert, Seoul's foreign ministry has strongly advised people in Israel and Lebanon to leave as soon as possible. South Korea has issued a level 3 travel alert in Israel and Lebanon, which calls for people to leave the countries. The Gaza Strip is under a level 4 alert, the highest of the 4-scale travel warning system, completely banning travel to the area.
The government strongly urges our citizens currently residing in Israel and Lebanon, where a level 3 travel alert has been issued due to the recent situation in the Middle East, to leave as soon as possible using available flights.
As of Friday, there are currently around 540 Koreans in Israel and about 110 in Lebanon.
I see. So we'll have to see how the situation turns out further. All right, Eunji, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Elsewhere in the world, over in Russia, Ukrainian forces appear to have made one of their largest incursions into Russia since the war began in early 2022. Cha Yong-kyung has the details.
Russia's defense ministry has said that up to 1,000 Ukrainian troops entered Russia near the town of Sudza on Tuesday morning local time. The Ukrainian army began a ground offensive with tanks and armored combat vehicles following missile and drone attacks. A state of emergency was declared, leading to thousands of people evacuating from the Kursk region. The Russian Chief of General Staff, Valery Gerasimov, reported to President Vladimir Putin that Russian forces had halted around 1,000 Ukrainian soldiers with airstrikes, missiles, and artillery fire and pushed them back to the border in a nighttime operation. Gerasimov said that the enemy's losses amounted to 315 people, including at least 100 killed and 215 wounded. 54 armored vehicles, including 7 tanks, were destroyed. President Putin accused Ukraine of launching an unprovoked assault on civilian buildings and residences.
The Kyiv regime has undertaken another large-scale provocation and is conducting indiscriminate shelling with various types of weaponry, including missiles, of civilian buildings, residential buildings, and ambulances.
Ukraine has not commented on the attack, but did announce that it is carrying out a large-scale plan while revealing its infiltration mission into the Kherson area, which is occupied by Russia.
We had hundreds of meetings and talks to strengthen the capabilities of our aviation, to strengthen the capabilities of our air defense system, of our defense forces.
Ukraine has been launching missile attacks on Russia. However, the incursion into the Kursk region by mobilizing infantry is considered to be unusual. This battle in Kursk appears to be one of the largest incursions into Russia since the war began in February 2022. Cha Yong-kyung, Arirang News.
In the United States, a major development in the presidential campaign. This week, Vice President Kamala Harris chose her running mate, completing the Democratic Party's presidential ticket. Our Choi Min-jung tells us who he is and how the presidential campaign is playing out.
U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris has chosen Governor Tim Walz of Minnesota as her running mate. Walz was chosen from half a dozen Democrats on Tuesday morning after Harris held in-person interviews with the candidates. The two made their first campaign appearance together at a rally in Philadelphia later in the day, where Harris introduced Walz as the vice president America deserves.
Because he's the kind of person who makes people feel like they belong and then inspires them to dream big. And that's the kind of vice president he will be. And that's the kind of vice president America deserves.
Harris also highlighted Walz's political record as one that ticks the boxes in supporting her goal to fight for the middle class. Harris noted that Walz was the first governor in the U.S. to sign a law enshrining abortion as a right, paid leave for women, and voting rights. It was also noted that her running mate expanded background checks and increased penalties for sales of illegal firearms. One expert says Walz's diverse blue-collar background makes him somebody who could be quite popular.
He worked as a high school social studies teacher. He coached football in Minnesota before getting into politics. He has a military background with the U.S. Army National Guard. So, too, he worked as a member of Congress for Minnesota before taking over as Minnesota's governor in 2019. So he knows the legislative side and the executive side. So even though
At Tuesday's rally, the VP candidate took aim at his competition, J.D. Vance.
I got to tell you, pointing out just an observation of mine that I made. I just have to say it. You know it, you feel it. These guys are creepy and yes, just weird as hell. That's what you see.
Meanwhile, recent polls show that Harris is moving ahead of Trump in the presidential race. Numerous national head-to-head polls, including Survey USA and NPR PBS News, put Harris up 3 points ahead of Trump in the early August period, at around 48% to 45%. CBS News made it a 1% lead for Harris. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
Shifting our focus to the economy, South Korea's stock market started the week with a nightmare, seeing its worst day in almost 16 years. However, a day later, its benchmark Kospi index rallied, even activating trading curves. Our economics correspondent Moon Hae-ryun analyzes what's causing this turbulence.
South Korea's stock market showed a steep climb following Black Monday, which saw the country's worst trading session since the global financial crisis of 2008. According to the Korea Exchange on Tuesday, the Kospi closed at just over 2,522, 3.3% higher than the previous day's close, while the secondary tech-heavy Kosdaq ended the session at over 732, up by more than 6%. Just minutes into the day's trading session, a 5-minute sidecar trading curve was activated for both markets to prevent steep price movements as they showed rapid gains. It's the first time since June 2020 that the sidecar has been activated over a surge in the main Kospi. This comes following sharp declines the previous day, with the circuit breaker trading curve activated for the first time in some 4 years. On Monday, the Kospi ended the session after falling by more than 8%, while the Kosdaq closed after shedding over 11%. Concerns of a slowdown in the world's biggest economy following on from weak U.S. employment data in turn caused widespread panic in the South Korean market, especially with the U.S. becoming the country's biggest export destination.
Because of the panic that was taking place in the U.S. markets, a lot of foreign investors withdrew money from the Korean stock market.
Samsung Electronics and SK hynix tracked heavy losses on Monday, with the former falling by more than 10%, but Tuesday showed them regaining their losses.
Because both Hynix and Samsung depend so much on the U.S. market, that probably had an additional effect on their volatility.
To stabilize the market and calm investor sentiment, Finance Minister Choi Sang-mok held an emergency macroeconomic and financial affairs meeting with the head of the central bank, the Financial Services Commission chairman, and the Financial Supervisory Service governor. Choi reaffirmed the operation of an around-the-clock monitoring system to respond with contingency plans if necessary. Moon Hae-ryun, Arirang News.
And on the same day, the Korean government announced support measures for sellers on 2 major e-commerce platforms in the country, WeMakePrice and Tmon, which have been affected by recent payment delays. Our political correspondent Lee Si-hoo reports.
On Tuesday, the South Korean government announced comprehensive measures for those suffering financial damage from the ongoing crisis involving e-commerce platforms Tmon and WeMakePrice.
Government is committed to minimizing damage to consumers and vendors by maximizing available resources.
From Wednesday, vendors waiting for delayed payments can apply for an up to 1-year extension of the maturity of their existing loans. And from Friday, vendors can apply for liquidity support with more than 300 billion Korean won, or roughly $218 million in total, being offered by the Industrial Bank of Korea and the Korea Credit Guarantee Fund. This support is given in the form of special low-interest loans at the minimum rate of 3.9%, at least 1 percentage point lower than the regular rate for small business owners. The owners can receive loans of up to the cost of the damage or 3 billion Korean won, whichever is less. Also on Friday, another emergency loan totaling 200 billion Korean won or $145 million by two government agencies, the Small Enterprise and Market Service and the Korea SMEs and Startups Agency. Individual small business owners can apply to borrow up to 150 million won and medium-sized business owners can apply for up to 1 billion won. For further support, some 20 related government and civil bodies are coming together to form an emergency response team. The Ministry of SMEs and Startups, the Financial Services Commission, and other bodies are operating consultation and information services for victims. They're also setting up special teams to prevent potential abuse of aid. The delayed refunds and payments by South Korean affiliates of Singapore-based e-commerce platform Q10 have caused market chaos in the country since early July. Since then, the sellers have been waiting for payment and customers for refunds on unshipped products or canceled services. Sources say the issue stems from a liquidity crisis at Q10 after its takeover of another shopping platform earlier this year. The estimated total cost of damage as of last week was over 274 billion Korean won, or around $200 million. 이시후, Arirang News.
On the trade front, South Korea posted its largest current account surplus in almost 7 years, thanks to booming global demand for AI chips. Here's our Moon Hae-ryun again.
With the semiconductor boom, South Korea's trade balance in June posted its largest surplus in nearly 7 years. Preliminary data from the Bank of Korea on Wednesday showed that the country's current account surplus came to $12.26 billion. It's the largest since September 2017 and marks the second month in a row that the trade balance has been in the black. With this latest data, the current account balance in the first half of the year tallied up to nearly $38 billion, a notable rebound from the $1.1 billion recorded the year before during the same period. This far exceeds the central bank's earlier forecast, which predicted that the current account balance would log just under $28 billion between January to June this year. These latest figures for June were driven by a solid goods account of $11.4 billion, which marks 15 months of continuous growth and is the highest sum recorded since September 2020.
This comes due to continuous strong semiconductor exports, which reached an all-time high due to a rise in demand for AI-related industries and higher memory chip prices.
The goods account tracks imports and exports amounted to nearly $59 billion with thriving outbound shipments of semiconductors. Chip exports increased by more than 50% year-on-year, along with a rise in exports for information and communication equipment, petroleum products and passenger vehicles. Imports, on the other hand, fell by 5% year-on-year and came to some $47 billion. However, the service balance, which includes earnings and spending on overseas trips and transport, was in the red by $1.62 billion. In particular, the travel sector accounted for a deficit of $900 million, meaning that people were spending more to travel to other countries. Meanwhile, the primary account balance responsible for monitoring foreign workers' wages and overseas dividend payments reported a surplus of under $2.7 billion. Moon Hae-ryun, Arirang News.
On the cultural front, renowned linguist Noam Chomsky once said, "Language is not just words. It's a culture, a tradition, a unification of a community." With a growing global interest in Korean culture, the demand for learning the Korean language is also increasing. Educators meeting this demand in various parts of the world gathered in Korea this week to share their experiences. Take a look. When Bai Maganbetova Dilbar first started learning Korean 10 years ago, she never imagined where it would take her. A former student at the King Sejong Institute in Kazakhstan, she was drawn to the beauty of the language and now teaches at the very place where she picked it up. Now, she has become the first foreign national to win the grand prize, the highest honor at the World Korean Educator Conference's Outstanding Educator Award.
한국어는 제 일이고 제 과거이고 그리고 현재이고 제 미래이라고 생각합니다. 네, 앞으로도 한국어를 더 열심히 공부하고 학생들에게 한국어를 더 재미있게 가르칠 수 있는 그런 선생님이 되고 싶습니다.
Every summer, hundreds of Korean language instructors from around the world gather in Korea for this conference.
The World Korean Educator Conference is a platform to honor teachers from King Sejong Institutes worldwide who work to spread the Korean language and Korean culture. It also provides training to enhance their teaching skills.
The King Sejong Institute, run by the King Sejong Institute Foundation under the Culture Ministry, is dedicated to teaching Korean language and culture to non-native speakers. With over 250 branches in more than 80 countries, the institute has seen a surge in students eager to learn Korean. This growing interest makes discovering the most effective teaching strategies crucial. Bai Magomedova wanted to make what she found challenging when learning Korean easier, so she decided to add a fun twist.
수업 시간에 조금 약간 5분, 10분 정도 게임을 하고 학생들에게 그렇게 어휘나 문법을 설명하거나 연습을 합니다.
Until Friday, these passionate instructors will learn and practice the latest techniques, including integrating the latest technology and trends like short-form content. One of the participants, Zanabekz Begimai, was the first student of the King Sejong Institute in Kyrgyzstan, where she teaches now.
한국어를 가르쳐 주신 선생님들의 방식대로 제가 배운 것 그대로 그냥 가르치고 있는 것 같아요. 뭐 수업 중에 뭐 한국 관련 뭐 동영상 보여주거나 아니면 뭐 드라마 같은 거 조금씩 보여주고 아니면 그 노래들 있잖아요. 애기들이童謡.
The theme of this year's World Korean Educator Conference is Teaching Korean is a Wonderful Thing. Through this, participants will explore how to make learning Korean a truly wonderful experience for their students. And that's all for weekly news highlights for this week. Thank you for watching, and on behalf of all of us here at Arirang, we hope you have a great rest of the weekend.